Welcome. On behalf of Margaret's family, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. It's good to be together with so many who remember and love my cousin Margaret. In a moment, we will have a chance to share some of our memories. But first, I'd like to invite my brother Tom to say a prayer.
Okay, thanks for being here, but if we could just take a moment, and if you would just join with me in a quick prayer, I'd appreciate that. So, Lord, we just come before you today, Father. We thank you for this beautiful celebration. We thank you, Lord, for the people that are here to celebrate wonderful Margaret's life. And Lord, we thank you for Margie, and we just lift her up, Lord, and we thank you for the creation that she was, Lord, with her unique abilities like no one else, Father, whether it's her artwork or her love for helping people with mental illness or her garden, or, Lord, just her sense of humor was wicked, and I still think about the duck going through the drive-thru. But, Lord, she was yours, and you created her, and we just thank you for her. So let today be a day that we remember Margie, we celebrate her life, and just the love that she is. But Lord, even though we're sorry, Father, we thank you for your son Jesus and for what he did for us, Lord, as the cross reminds us of that behind me. So Father, thank you for your love for us and what you've done. And may we lift up the family and be comforted and peace, enjoying and just having the privilege to know Margie Atkins. Amen.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her, modest lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country roads, oh, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear a voice
like to take this time to invite anyone who'd like to share memories or stories of Margaret to do so. Is there anyone that I could invite to start? Brenda?
Didn't know I was going to have one of these. Thanks. Margaret was my friend. We met John and Margaret at the brew pub. We were both, Van and I, as well as John and Margaret, would go to the brew pub on Thursday night because we had mutual friends who were playing music and singing. And so we all went down to listen to them. We realized they were there at the same time we were every single Thursday night. So we got to where we would sit together. We became very good friends. We cried over each other's misfortunes. When our daughter moved to North Carolina, and we cheered over each other's friends, like when they moved back. We were able to settle all the political problems in the entire country. And if we could do that in 2 hours, and if only the president and Congress would listen to us, things would be different today. We eventually decided that we needed more than one night a week. And I found in the Morgantown magazine a list of all the restaurants in Morgantown. I tore it out, made a copy, and we decided to try every single one of them. But it was going to take more than one night a week. So after that, it was every Tuesday and Thursday night. You would find us together someplace enjoying dinner and settling the world's problems. Margaret and John were some of our best friends. They knew our children. We knew theirs. John and Margaret even went, when our granddaughter was doing Irish step dancing, they went to her recital. And of course, they cheered her on just like other grandparents would have. And of course, they agreed she was the best one on the stage. In a minute. We, Van and I were fortunate enough to make 2 trips to Houston to see them while they were down there. And with John and Margaret, I remember something that I read from Tennyson in high school, and it's always been one of my favorites. And it said, "I'm a part of all that I have met, so I consider myself very, very lucky to be a part of Margaret, and hopefully Margaret will live on in me as well."
That was beautiful. Thank you. Gillette.
I'm Becky, Margaret's niece, and Uncle John's niece. I can't look at you, Ben. Just one memory particularly wraps up, I think, Aunt Margie for me, encapsulates it perfectly. Just so happened that Ben and my husband Andy were plebes the same year, class of '92, and Ben had gotten his appointment that Christmas, and everyone asked me, well, Becky, are you gonna look at the academy? I said, no, I want nothing to do with the academy whatsoever. 2 weeks after we started dating, he got accepted. I didn't know he'd even applied. So we started plebe year all together, more or less. But Aunt Margie had that one moment where her sneaky little sense of humor, wrapped up with her love of gardening and her attention to detail and planning, all came together. At the academy, it's known as the dark ages when they go through January and February. And she wanted to make sure that the first sign of spring came from her. So we did a little recon mission that fall. She had her tulip bulb cutter. We had hyacinth, crocus, and the fact that she even roped your parents into it at all, because your parents never, ever break the rules. You could be found for several years after they had already graduated along the walkway between the Bancroft Hall, the main dormitory, and was that Chauvenet? No, Chauvenet, yeah. There's a little walkway there, and the barber shop. It was very kind of unceremonial spot in many ways, but it was, I guess, in a nice, I don't know. It was good for us, I guess. She figured it out. She liked it. Maybe it's because it was outside the mid-store and she liked to go to the mid-store. But in the dark of night, about 10 o'clock, we went and we dug holes and planted the bulbs so that the first sign of spring for Andy and Ben and any of their friends that knew about it would come up along that walkway. And every time I would go by, I'd check to see that nobody had dug them up. So for many years to come, eventually the walkway got remodeled, but the memory lives on. And I just so happened that Andy and I were staying at the Naval Academy campground right across from Annapolis, looking out at the academy when we got the text that Aunt Margie had passed. And immediately I couldn't believe it, but I never buy things ahead. I'm very seasonal. And I had just so happened to have bought at Trader Joe's a little hyacinth. And it was pretty cold this winter because we're actually living in our camper. And it was pretty cold, and I thought, this hyacinth is never gonna bloom. It was blooming the morning that she passed.
Hello, I'm Cindy. I'm Joan's daughter. I grew up next to Margaret and John. They were almost like a second family to us next door. I'm kind of the gypsy in the family. I've been in and out of town a lot. But when I did come in and out of town, Margaret was always sitting there at the kitchen table having coffee with Mom and catching up, and I'd catch up with Margaret too. They are the kindest people. They both were the kindest, most down-to-earth folks. And Stacy and Mike, they're wonderful people who are next door now, but they got some big shoes to fill. That's all.
Hi, I'm Jack Goki, and it's less of a memory, but more of a thanks. I met Ben, I think, around 1989, something like that, and I was home visiting from the Army, and I saw that he had something to do with the Navy, and we became friends very quickly, and introduced me to his parents, John and Margaret, and they quickly introduced me to the person who would become my best friend, still my best friend, John Cole. He became my college roommate for 3 years, and it just really impacted our lives. John and I would meet frequently with Margaret and John in Morgantown while we were students, and they would give us guidance at the brew pub or places like that. But Margaret and John also helped get my younger brother Ryan into the Naval Academy, and the point is lives matter, and the people we meet change our trajectory. And Margaret and John had a massive influence on my life, and I'll never forget them. So.
Hi, I'm Lisa Holland. I was Margaret's neighbor. She helped us and John tremendously when Destiny and Sam were little kids. All kinds of things. She would do traditional Christmas parties, and we had a Christmas caroling thing and stuff like that. But she did have one regret, and I feel like she wants me to pass it on, because she said it several times, and it involved you, Ben. She gave me horseradish, and she said she was pretty sure you did not know that you have to harvest it after a year, and it shouldn't stay in the ground for multiple years. And she honestly said she thinks she ruined you over that. But if you would just learn how to grow horseradish one time, it would negate the whole problem.
Anyone else?
It's Cindy again. My mom is Joan, and I don't think she can make it through what she told me to write for her. And so I'm going to talk in her words for her, okay? Neither one of us are very good at this. Mom said, I remember my friend when walking in my yard and seeing her flowers that she entrusted to my care and to love them like she did. When my grandson was visiting and playing piano, she would call John to come and listen from across the road. I remember Margaret when I walk past and see things in my house that she and her mom made for me. I will always remember the things in my heart we both talked about over coffee in the mornings. Every morning, I might add. We both talked over coffee in the mornings. We discussed a lot of life over 1 or 2 cups of coffee every day. I have wonderful memories of when we went out to dinners together, such fun times. Margaret would say I was the only sister she never had. She was a sister to me, especially after having lost my sister way too young. I have wonderful memories of her with her beloved pets, her duck tookers, and her pups, Greta and Jake. Last but most important, I'll always remember Ben. She was so very proud of you. You and Jack. We bonded over family and became family. That's Joan Caputer talking.
We have a few memories that have been sent in by people who couldn't be with us today. This was sent by Robin Cole. I first met Margie about 50 years ago when she, John, and Benji then, moved to Bethany. Margie and I immediately became friends, and a friendship that stood the tests of time and distance. When I think back to those early years, I remember playing cards on our back porch while our kids played in the backyard, watching Pee-wee baseball games, sharing meals, and just endlessly talking and laughing. Margie was never boring. Her interests were broad and diverse, and she willingly discussed any topic. She was also very gracious. She did not blame us on the day when she had a doctor's appointment in Pittsburgh so Benji stayed with us and managed to break his wrist jumping off of our spring set. Why that day of all days? Margie was an artist in her craft work, her paper cutting, and her everyday life. She was meticulous in planning everything and following through on those plans. I remember thinking that she embodied the idea that anything worth doing is worth doing well, as opposed to my attitude that anything worth doing is worth doing well enough. Well enough was never acceptable to Margie. When we were on vacation in South Carolina, she and I would walk our dogs on the beach while she would search for perfect seashells. Only perfect ones would do. I tired of this activity long before she did, but afterwards she would research the shells she had collected to determine what they were. She admired their beauty, but she also needed to know what they were. This attention to detail was evident in her craft work as well. For just one example, she once made a Christmas shadow box for us with a felt mouse, Santa, holding a list of good children who would receive the gifts displayed in the box. The list, in the tiniest writing, contained the name of every child in our circle of friends in Bethany. Of course, this is a treasured decoration in our house. Her finest achievements in art are her paper cuttings. Each is a masterpiece of artistic endeavor, detailed, beautiful, and unbelievably time-consuming. Only a true artist could devote so much time and effort to that work. There are many other stories and things I could say about Margie, but nothing I can say can capture the real Margie that I knew as one of my dearest friends. She was a person who cared about my kids almost as much as I did. She was kind, generous, unassuming, caring, and endlessly entertaining. I was never bored when I was with Margie, and I will always miss her.
I'm going to read a letter from Robin's husband, John. They would have been here today. They're homesick and are very sad that they're not with us. If you don't know, we're actually streaming this, so I'm hoping they're watching and we do justice to your words. I will preface it by saying that Robin and John are both English professors, so it's nice to read something they wrote, because when I wrote them letters, I was afraid I'd get it back marked up. This is from John. 2 thoughts come to mind when I think of Margaret Atkins. She was a devoted friend for over 50 years. Wow, gosh. And a devoted godmother to our daughter Anne for 46.
Robin was the first to meet Margie as we knew her. She had heard there was a new faculty wife with a son our son's age, so she set out with a stroller and encountered Margie walking Ben. They became immediate friends, and that friendship led to many afternoons and nights for over 10 years, with our families sharing dinners, playing hearts on the porch, or watching our children play. John and I became fast friends and made many trips to Sparrows in Avila for cases of Rolling Rock. But Margie and I bonded immediately as I admired her artistic talent, and that led to many conversations about art, gardening, and cooking. She encouraged me to try my hand at crafting stained sun catchers, a hobby I enjoyed for many years. When John decided to take a professorship at West Virginia University, our close association as neighbors led to many years of weekends visiting or long phone conversations. Over the years, we managed to keep each other informed of all the important and difficult things that transpired in our lives. Our most recent memorable times together were of the Isle of Palms, South Carolina. For many years, we've been wintering there, and on several occasions, John and Margie, and also Ben, were able to join us. Those South Carolina visits allowed us to reminisce on the many years of friendship and enjoy sharing trips exploring the Charleston area and the beaches. Their dog, Jake, also provided us with many amusing moments which John and Ben can explain. And I will never forget those many bins of clothing and shoes and also food items that Margie insisted on bringing, which resulted in many trips to and from the car for John. Margie always had to have the right outfit to wear and wanted to make certain she provided her share of food. That memory provides an appropriate segue into what were Margie's most endearing qualities. The Margaret Atkins we all came to know and love and respect insisted on perfection. She claimed she was not a good cook, but every meal she prepared for us over the years was perfect, from the table setting, hors d'oeuvres, through the dessert. I remember one time when she wanted black and white wallpaper similar to the one I had used in our bathroom, but she could not find anything she liked. So the walls remained bare for several months until she found the perfect pattern. Her insistence on perfection applied also to her art. Nothing she created was displayed until it met her expectations. I would have been happy with any of the rejects. Another quality I admired was her patience. If you've ever seen some of her exquisite Sharon snits, you have some idea of that kind of patience. She demonstrated the same degree of patience with all the people she engaged with and the projects she undertook. Her devotion to her brother Ben and the organization NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Health, is a prime example. And of all the holidays, Christmas was her favorite. If you visited the Atkins home on the holidays, you would find every corner brimming with greens, ribbons, and unusual ornaments and decorations she had collected over the years. However, despite all her community and artistic activities, Margie managed to remain true always to the role she considered her main mission, that of a devoted wife and mother. John and Ben may have felt at times that a little less attention was warranted, but I'm certain they always felt compelled to deserve the depth of her love.
This is a remembrance from Margaret's granddaughter, Anne. Goddaughter, Anne. Margie was such an amazing godmother. I know that a lot of times, as a godchild grows older, that the godparent feels as though they are finished with their duties. But Margie was not like that at all. She remembered every birthday of mine, every Christmas, and made sure to acknowledge every important event of my life. She made sure to visit me during one of the hardest times of my life, and I knew I could always count on Godmother Margie. She was such a talented woman, and I remember her incredible paper cutouts being in our house since a child. She made sure to give me some before we lost her, and I am so grateful for that. We always promised to keep in touch, and I'm so grateful that we actually did. I couldn't have asked for a better godmother.
This is me. I'm Betsy Bolander. I'm Margaret's cousin. And at this stage of life, there really aren't that many people that you can say that you've known and loved through your whole entire life. Margaret was one of those people for me, and I'm so grateful to have had her in my life and for all the love, beauty, and humor she brought to our whole family. Spending time with Margaret always included sharing those little detailed memories that bring back old times and the people we love. The bubble lights on Poppy and Ma's Christmas tree, her brothers sliding down the banister at our grandparents' house, our childhood dogs, Pete, Sally, and Ginny, lemon meringue pie at picnics at the cabin. Just last year, she talked with me about visiting our house when I was a child, and that she knew I was a special little kid when I named a pet worm Lovable Rainbow. I mean, really, who else would remember that for you all those years later? Margaret was a teenager when I was a little girl, and wow, she was so cool. I wanted to be just like her. She made really neat swaps to take to her Girl Scout jamborees. She collected and pressed wildflowers at the cabin. She wore lipstick. And she was so kind to a little girl, taking time to show me things, play Candyland, and swing in our grandparents' backyard. I don't think I've ever stopped looking up to Margaret and knowing how really cool she was. I remember her going off to college, meeting John, and going to their wedding, reading with my mom her many letters of life in Bethany and Morgantown, and stories of their precocious little son, Benji. Later, I appreciated hearing about her compassionate leadership at NAMI, which was one of the ways she showed her love for her brother, Ben. Like many who shared today, I'm in awe of Margaret's precise craftsmanship in art, her beautiful paper and fiber art, Sharon's knits, stamping, and sewing. Each Christmas for many years, she made one identical Santa ornament for each of our extended families until each family owned a remarkable set that we still display. 10 years ago, she invited me to Morgantown to Camp Maggie for a week of art and hanging out. You might picture us like serenely sitting down with dresses on and doing little watercolors. No. We mixed a giant batch of this cement-like compound called hypertufa and made several pieces of smallish garden art. I mentioned small because Margaret said her thought was for us to master the art of hypertufa that year, and then the next summer to build a huge Easter Island head for her garden. For better or worse, we never got that far. My mother, Betty, and Margaret's mother, Newt, were sisters. Margaret was born while Mom was still single and living in Baltimore. Margaret and Mom both fondly told stories of going off on adventures together in Aunt Betty's car. Glamorous Aunt Betty and Tookie. Margaret once told me that she wanted to be for me that same adventure-sharing role model that Mom was for her. She succeeded. At the end of every phone conversation or visit, Margaret would be sure to say, "I love you. Margaret, I hope you know how much everything you did meant to me. I love you."
Blue can't oh, someday I wish upon a star. Wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops. High above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dream that you dare to, why, oh why can't
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm Margaret's grandson. I was doing all right until we put on the most emotional song known to man, so now I'm struggling a little bit, so bear with me. I didn't write anything down because I've been thinking a lot about what I wanted to say, and I wanted it to more come like authentically in the moment. Unfortunately, I'm a bit of an amateur when it comes to memorials and things of that nature, but I think when I was younger, I looked at, death as sort of an all bad thing, but as time goes on and I get older, I think I'm able to learn some lessons from it. And this might have been the most intimate loss of my life, especially as a young adult. And I think the big takeaway I've had that really keeps me optimistic, and I don't know exactly how to phrase it, so bear with me, but I think in a sense grief can be very aspirational because you don't have grief without a lot of love. And the hardest part of this whole thing has been seeing how broken up my grandpa has been. But I think that's a testament to the fact that that's a byproduct of 55 years of a beautiful marriage that a lot of people don't get to experience. So I look at that as sort of something aspirational in the sense that I hope that someday I could have a marriage as strong as John and Margaret did. So, well, we're all, at least, we're definitely broken up about this loss. I think it's a testament to the fact of how complete my grandmother made us feel. And even though we're missing that puzzle piece that she was in our life, she helped us paint a more vivid picture overall so we can continue on in her memory. And while we grieve the loss now, I think we'll all look back with a lot of joy and a lot of happiness. And I know I will. Yeah, I want to keep it short and sweet. I'm glad I got through that without breaking out in tears, but I appreciate everyone so much for coming, and I love you, Grandma.
This will be good.
Testing.
I'm John Freet. I've known Margaret for 75 years. She was there when I was born. And as a child growing up, she's the best big sister I could ever have had. And what always killed me when I came to visit her in West Virginia and Texas, she would introduce me as her baby brother. And I weighed 2.5 times more. But when we grew up in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, Margaret was born 45, I was born 49. And our brother Ben was born in 53. The situation in Chambersburg was precious. I didn't realize it at the time, but the 1950s were the best years. The men came back from the war, decisive victory. None of this like we have today. They were proud. And I want to tell you, you didn't mess with them. What they had seen and done, unimaginable. My dad served in the Pacific, Iwo Jima. He was a mechanic, pilot. When the planes came back, shot up, he would fix them, make sure they were airworthy. His twin brother, Bill, was in a ship circling the very island that my dad was serving. Neither knew the other one was there. But the real war hero of the family was Ed Bolander, Tommy and Bess's dad. Growing up, I would spend some summers in Annapolis, and he would never talk about what he did. Later in life, Ed sought out some reunion dates with his buddies, and they opened up. Ed was shot out of a B-24 3 times, bailed out, survived. He flew 50 missions as a B-24 navigator and waist gunner. I can't imagine anything more heroic than that. People don't realize, and I won't get into too many stories, one of the reasons we won the air supremacy in World War II was because of our Texas oil fields being able to reduce gasoline with octane reaching 140 and 150. Germans could only amass 100, so our planes, the Spitfires and the Mustangs, would run circles around them. And that helped us control the war. Anyhow, Margaret, as you can imagine from all these stories, was a real ringleader of kids in the neighborhood. And we didn't terrorize the neighborhood, but we got them to do things we wanted them to do. And one of the things we did, we had a triple clothesline going down through our backyard, and we would throw blankets over the clothesline and make a fun house, a haunted house. Blindfold the neighborhood kids, let them to walk through the gauntlet, and they would be screaming. We had Halloween music, and they'd be stepping on creepy, crawly things and all that kind of stuff. Even though Margaret hung out with the older kids, she would always include me. She always had my back. Her nickname in Chambersburg was Tookie. Probably nobody here knows that. Tookie, and we probably got that from watching Mickey Mouse Club every day after school. When we moved to Millerstown, Pennsylvania, our dad got a promotion. Her nickname changed from Tookie to Maggie. Of course, being a younger brother, I called her Maggot. But again, she had older friends that had cars, and they would always include me. I was a big guy, but they knew if they wanted to have countenance with Margie, they better be nice to the younger brother, and that's the way it was. So Margaret goes to college. We graduate from Millerstown, she does, and she goes to college, and she's in a terrible automobile accident, and the university hospital here in Morgantown, as far as I'm concerned, saved her life. They diagnosed a tumor, annealed to her heart, operated. She had Hodgkin's disease, and back in the 60s, you did not survive from Hodgkin's disease, but she did. The life she enjoyed, the marriage with John, her beautiful son, Ben, there are a lot of Bens in our family now, is all a testament to her resolve. And no one can appreciate the challenges that she faced. She never spoke about them. Towards the end of her life, on a couple of trips that I was with her, we had a heart-to-heart conversation. She asked me, what's it going to be like, John? And I told her what I thought. And she had the most serene smile on her face. She was ready. But I want to tell you, she lived as long as she could to give all of us the chance to get used to the idea that we would be alone without her, but only to see her someday when we pass. I can't think of a better big sister. She was the best. And it's hard to be the last of the family, but it's our job. And she believed it. I told her, she agreed with me. We have to all be the best we can be. And we have to help others. And she spent a lifetime. She made a difference. She helped her baby brother, Ben, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was like 19 years old. For 35 years, we took care of him. And Margaret wrote to him, sent artwork, did everything she could to make his life better. All of us did, but Margaret was the best. Over at the reception, you're going to see some of Margaret's artwork that we all prize. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Try this again. I'm pretty motivated to get through this smoothly because I'm the last speaker before lunch, and I'd like everyone to enjoy a nice lunch. When I thought about this, I recalled soon after I started dating Amy, we had the misfortune of losing her father, and I saw her in a church remember her father. I hate to admit it, but there was a pang of competitiveness where I thought, wow, she is so poised and graceful. I'm not going to be able to do that. And it's ironic because last summer Betsy came and visited us and said, you know, the men in our family seem to gravitate towards strong women. I did. Dad certainly did. Aside from being strong, she was unpretentious, she was kind, loving, patient. It's funny, I went through a ton of slides to get ready for today. There are a lot of pictures of Mom watching a man fish, and that is patience right there. But underneath everything, she was strong. She had your back. She loved you with everything. People today laugh at helicopter parents. I am who I am because Mom and Dad gave me the freedom to be myself and live with those consequences. I grew up with my share of cuts, bruises, burns, few broken bones. Mom would dust me off and send me out to play again. Usually in Bethany, I would hop on the bike and ride my bike over to the Coles. In Bethany, you knew it was dinner time because the mother of the home would stand on the porch and yell for the kids. That's when they came in. But the Coles, they took it one level up. They had a bell on their back porch. And when it was dinner time, they rang the bell, and you could hear the bell throughout the neighborhood. It was almost as loud as the siren for the fire department. And Robin and John were good cooks, so sometimes I would follow the bell and join the family for their dinner. The best thing about Bethany was the Cole family. As you heard from Robin and John, they were dear friends, loved by our family. And Mom was very proud to be Annie's godmother. You said it. Godmother. I was thinking we're going to have some explaining to do if she's a granddaughter. We moved to Morgantown in 1980. We lived at 308 Grandview for 42 years. In my first years, I associated the Caputer family with the boys that had the most fun on the street. When I moved away, I would call. And if I called in the morning, Dad would say, "You got to call back. Mom's up having coffee with Joan." And I realized, wow, that is a strong friendship. And she was a sister to you. And she loved you. And our family is till noon. Our family is very grateful of your support in the last couple of years. Thank you. Mom and I had our squabbles in my teenage years, but we did have an agreement. One night a week, we would declare a truce, and we would cook together. We would pick a new recipe, and that truce was inviolate. We were kind to each other as we cooked. One of our favorites was jambalaya. When it wasn't the truce night, she invariably made chicken. I can't eat chicken anymore without thinking of 6 nights a week having chicken. When I moved away, she gave me a little portfolio with all the recipes that we had made. And lunchtime. I think of, whenever I make the jambalaya, I think of that. And that recipe card now is just coated in tomato sauce because I make it so often. One of my clearest memories of Grandview was October 1987 when I was walking home from school. And Mom was running down the road, super excited. She had an envelope in her hand. It was addressed to me, but it had been opened. And she said, "You've been accepted to the Naval Academy." And we were so excited about that. And as Becky touched on, the whole family goes to the Naval Academy. And Mom was proud of that. And Mom and Dad supported me through my ups and downs. In the week before she passed, I asked her for some of her favorite memories. The first thing she said was Annapolis. She described the joy she had to visit Aunt Betty and Uncle Ed, her cousins Tom and Betsy. She talked about crabbing. In 2021, her brother John shared a family slideshow, and I got to see pictures of Mom enjoying Annapolis as a child, and it made me realize that Annapolis wasn't just about me. There was a larger context for Mom. It made me happy to think of that. As I grew older, I increasingly appreciated a quiet evening on the porch at 308 Grandview. Mom and Dad would tell me about the precocious boy up the street, Luca, an adored second grandson. Mom loved our neighbors stopping by. She particularly loved the dogs, and we invariably remembered Golden Doodle Jakey. One of the hardest things I had to do was to sell 308 Grandview last year. That place was packed with art and crafts. And it was hard enough to box it up, but everything you picked up had a story. And Mom was in the background. Who carved it, who painted it, what antique show she bought it from. So that it was hard to do, but it was pleasant having those memories. I did find Mom was a great planner. As I went through things, there's a piece of paper, probably 10 years old, that said, "Here are the songs I'd like played at my memorial service." So I didn't choose them. Those were her songs. It's nice to think of her. After a drink on the porch, we headed out for dinner. We had our own table at the wine bar. Savored and Station and Outback were favorites. We always made these evenings a celebration of life. We recalled good times with family, and they particularly enjoyed dinner with Brenda and Van. Thank you for being such good friends, Mom and Dad. One time in my 20s, we were at the brew pub in the winter, and after dinner, I was headed off to meet friends, and Mom and Dad headed up, I think it's Walnut Street, and if you know Morgantown, walking from the brew pub to Grandview Avenue is a pretty good effort, and Mom and Dad it was cold, they were leaning against each other, holding hands. It was cold, but I also think they'd had some adult beverages at the brew pub, and that's why they were walking home. And I remember thinking, looking at them walk up the street, I saw them differently. They weren't my parents. They were a beautiful couple that had an amazing marriage. At dinner, Mom always asked about Jack. She loved being a grandmother. She loved Jack's kindness, patience, and sense of humor. They drove up many times from West Virginia to Connecticut and bounced out of the car happy to see Jack. They loved watching his sporting events. When he grew up, we would have dinner together, and Mom and Dad would always ask, "What's up with Jack? Where is he? What's he doing? When's he visiting next?" Jack would visit in Houston, and he was Mom's personal shopper, which she enjoyed very much, with Dad's credit card. She loved every visit from Betsy and John in Houston these last years. She loved Betsy's sense of humor, kindness, and passion for the arts. She spoke lovingly of her brother John. I asked her about John. She said, growing up, John always outsmarted her and got her and her brother Ben in trouble. Just quoting. She thought about it and said, "That's all gone now. I love him and I only see the goodness." When Mom and Dad moved to Houston, we kept up our celebration of life dinners. When I would pick them up, Mom invariably asked, "Is Amy joining us?" And if she was, "Is Marshall joining us?" That's the German Shepherd. In one of our last conversations, Mom said, "I'm glad you found Amy." I said, "Yes, she is good to me. We're good together." She didn't say anything for a while. Finally, she said, "She is strong." In my last conversation with Mom, 3 days before she passed, I kind of set myself up with this memory. I was sitting next to her, holding her hand. She looked at me and said, "I'm dying, aren't I?" I nodded, yes. She looked in my eyes and said, "I'm ready. I've had a good life. I have loved you and your father, but you know that." I asked if she had any regrets. She said, "No, none." After a while, she added, "I haven't been a good Christian, have I?" I said, "You haven't been devout, but no one has lived a more Christian life. And besides, I've got you covered, Mom." She looked at me and smiled and laughed at that. She thought that was funny. That was her last laugh. And I said she was irreverent. Our family shares a love of the irreverent now and then. Several months prior, we had gone to a state park. Mom collected pine cones, and we looked for loblolly pines. I asked her where she wanted her ashes. She looked out in the woods and finally said, "I don't care, as long as I'm with your fathers." As my last words for today, Mom was a wonderful woman. She had a happy life, well loved by family and friends, and she gave it back to all of us tenfold. I hope we can each say the same when we meet her at the gate. This is Mom's last song.
Must have been cold there in my shadow. Never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine. You always walked a step behind. I was the one with all the gold. You were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without any.
Thank you all for coming. I wasn't joking, there is lunch. It's directly across the parking lot in the small chapel. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you over there.